Oh. Hey everybody, Teching here. I think I know why everything's going crazy right now in this One Piece chapter. It's 'cause I stole Imu's crown! The crown! Oh, the hubris! You know what has to happen now, ladies and gentlemen. We gotta go on a wacky adventure all the way up the red line to Marijois to return Imu's crown. It'll be just like the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the original one from 2004, which is obviously the best one. Who wants to be my Patrick Star as we embark on this endeavor? Yeah, you're right. It's not gonna work anyway. All right, this is it. One Piece, chapter 1179, titled NERONA Imu Descends. Two things, actually three, but first thing, I wonder if Oda pays any mind to the actual, number of the chapters that are crazy chapters. Right, because this is a wild chapter. We get to see Imu's face. Alright, that's a big one. So I wonder if Oda is, sitting down at his desk and thinking to himself consciously, 1179, that's the one I'm gonna reveal Imu's face. And it was 1044, that's the one where Luffy's gear fifth is going to be. I wonder if he thinks about that consciously, or if it's just, hey, it happens when it happens in the story, whatever chapter number it is, it is. I don't know. Second thing, this is the way the chapter title is written in the original Japanese with katakana and kanji. Imu's name is written in katakana, as it always is. NERONA, Imu. We'll get back to the NERONA part in a moment. It was mentioned before. The other kanji is korin. Okay, two kanji put together, it means korin, which does mean arrival, but not like normal arrival. Not like, oh yeah, hey, I'll be down at your place at 6 o'clock. Nothing like that. It means descend, or manifest, or something much more godly and grandiose. Kind of reminds me of when the chapter title, when the Gorosei arrived at Egghead, was Planetfall. Right, it was the literal planets blasting down, meteors hitting the earth was the power of the Gorosei arriving. Same kind of vibe here. The third thing is the name, NERONA Imu. So when Cobra first, was able to witness the splendor of Lord Imu in the empty throne room, the Gorosei were calling them Imu, and then Cobra was thinking of wait a minute, hold on a second. This has got to be a coincidence. It can't be the same person, but amongst the first 20, and then immediately Cobra gets cut off, and Imu is just cease your prying. I will not entertain such questions. Alright, so the way that Cobra kind of implied of it was, wait a minute, there was a member of the original 20, and this was later confirmed by Ivankov when Sabo got back to Kamabaka and was explaining to Dragon and Ivankov everything that happened up there. That's when Ivankov took out a book, and I think the book actually had Genesis written on it. It was probably a book published by the world government that was this is the genesis of the world government, their creation myth. I'm sure there's a lot of bullshit in there, but it probably does include a list of the original saints, the original founders of the world government, and Imu NERONA was listed there, okay? So this confirms that, yes, at the very least, I'm going to say the body that we see as Imu at the end of this chapter is, in fact, the body of Imu NERONA. There could be other shenanigans going on. There's probably other shenanigans going on. All right, so, oh yeah, we got a cover request. We got Yamato and Ace on a hypothetical field trip. If Ace survived and went back to Wano and hung out with Yamato and they took out the mountain god, the big boar that Odin sliced in half, but then they stitched back up. That's canon. And then they're playing with a bunch of the little baby pigs, and Otama's also there as well. And yeah, this is just a nice little what-if scenario for a cover page. How much of a troll would I be to just focus on this cover request for 10 minutes? Break down every single, hey guys, hold on a minute. Ace is wearing a Casa hat, and we all know that Ace could make the Casa hats. He learned how to do that from Tama. And later on, we see Oars Jr. So I'm doing it already. All right, let's get to the chapter. There's lots of stuff to cover here. Okay. We are in Marijois, we're in Castle Pangaea, right where the last chapter, left off, where Imu, being absolutely intimidated and just rocked by God Usopp's declaration, of Usopp giving him the business of like, hey, you want to fight us? Get your own ass down here and fight us, right? And so Imu's like, oh, I'll show you. And so Imu announces to the Gorosei, I'm going to be leaving Marijois for a little while, right? And so now they are over the Dendenmushi communicating with Lord Imu. So the Gorosei are not in Imu's presence. Imu is in the flower room, and the Gorosei are in the room of authority. Which is interesting because the only two rooms we've ever seen Imu enter are the flower room and the empty throne room. I don't think Imu's ever been in the room of authority or any other room in Castle Pangaea. Parts of the castle are closed off, and it's sort of like the phantom rooms that don't really exist. So there's some servants that are allowed in those rooms, but it's kind of curious of like what the boundaries are going to be and what those boundaries imply. We'll get there when we get there, when Imu does things in this chapter. So the Gorosei are like, you know, like shocked and stunned or like incredulous by this. They were like, great Imu, are you really leaving the castle? You cannot do that. That's what? Okay? And so you don't surely intend to go to Elbaf yourself. Please reconsider this for you to descend to the lower realm. Now, we all know the Celestial Dragons are full of themselves, right? That has been clearly established in this story. They refer to everything that is not on top of the red line as the lower realm of the peasants. And a lot of the Celestial Dragons don't want to go down there, or if they do go down, they're going to wear their protective helmets because they don't want to breathe the same air as the common folk. This seems beyond that, though. This doesn't just seem to be simple hubris of like, the Imu, you must not sully your hands by going to the lower realm. No, this is genuine terror. This is genuine concern. Like, no, Lord Imu, if you go to the lower realm, ... bad shit's gonna happen. Like, so you need to reconsider this, please. This is the Gorosei. And they know what Imu's capable of. Saturn is not even really, his body is not even cold yet. Well, I mean, his body was turned into a skeleton, so it's probably pretty cold. Yo! All right, it's only been like a couple of weeks since Saturn died, right? So they're aware of what Imu can do. He can just kill any of them at any given time. And even they are kind of like, hey, hold on a minute. Maybe you should reconsider this. There are other options, right? At that moment, Garling enters the room. Remember, Garling is the new, scientific defense minister, head of the government as part of the new Gorosei, Saturn's replacement. And he walks in and he's all business about this. He's just like, this is no time for idleness. This is time for action. So Garling is like, hey, it is not our decision to make. Lord Emu's the one that runs the show. So Lord Emu wants to go. Lord Emu wants to go. We have bigger fish to fry right now. We got a lot of craziness happening here. Shamrock arriving at the Holy Land has quelled matters up here for a little bit, but the lower realm dwellers have starved us out. You know, we were a fool to think that we could just, stop them just with brute force, right? We weren't properly prepared, and now the Celestial Dragons are starving. Our own troops are beginning to starve up here. This is a problem. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment here because a lot of people have kind of brought up a little bit of an issue with this. Since the Gods Knights have the ability to teleport, why would they not just use the Abyss to teleport out of Marijois, take a bunch of food, and then teleport back to Marijois? I don't know if there's an explanation for this. I don't know if it's ever going to be brought up. I feel like it should be brought up at this point because that is kind of a big deal. Not a lot of people can use the Abyss. It's only select Gods Knights that can use the Abyss and the Gorosei. But Garling himself is walking in here right now saying, we were arrogant to think we could easily stop the dwellers in the lower realm from using starvation tactics against us, right? Garling, you have access to the Abyss. Pop down somewhere into the lower realm, go to a grocery store, buy some food, and haul it back. Right? Now, there could be limitations to all of this. For one thing, you need to have a specific Abyss circle drawn. I would assume in the 800 years of the world government's existence, there's a few of those Abyss circles around. Not sure where they're all located, but they gotta be around somewhere, right? At the very least, what you could do is there's Abyss circles in Marijois, so you could personally leave Marijois. You could go somewhere to the lower realm. The Gorosei would have that ability. The Gods Knights have that ability. And then they would just hop on the circle and, pick up the food and then go back. And then there you go. That's all I have to do. So I don't know if there's a reason why they're not doing that. You could definitely bring objects and things through the Abyss. Maybe there is a limitation with that, but like weapons and clothing and all sorts of other things go. Maybe since food is not like it's organic, you know, like vegetables and things. Maybe they would wither through the abyss. That might be it. It's possible, but I just want to bring that up as like a thing because, you know, you could technically do that. Garling goes on to say that our priority should be rallying the military might needed to assert global dominance, even the former Navy HQ. And then he starts to continue his sentence, and he gets cut off. He gets cut off as York is calling him, okay? So we're going to touch upon what's going on with York here in a minute, because we haven't seen anything what's happening with her since the end of Egghead, right? But it's interesting. Garley mentions, oh, hey, we need to do all this military might. We need to rally our troops together, right? Because this is a big war that's about to get started. Even the former Navy HQ. So the former Navy HQ is Marineford. It's currently G1. So something about... I don't know. I don't know if he was just talking about like, oh, not only in the New World do we need to get mobilizing, but also in Paradise we also need to get mobilizing. So even G1, the former Navy HQ, even they need to be doing stuff. I don't know. A very insignificant thing in the crazy lore dump that is this chapter, but I did want to bring it up here. So the Den Mushi rings. It's the one that Garling is holding. That would have been really funny if it was the one that Emu was on, and they, hold on, Lord Emu, we're getting another call. We need to put you on hold for a moment. Yes? Hi, it's York. Yeah, okay, no. Garling's personal Den Mushi rings and York. So, remember when Garling was admitted to the Gorosei, one of the first things he says is, York will be under my charge. Alright, so it's directly under his thumb is York, the Vegapunk that defected, alright? And so, York, as we could have expected, is not too pleased with the fact that there is a food shortage at Marijois right now. She is throwing a tantrum. So we cut to the labo phase, the power plant, at Marijois. Alright, so what has happened here, if you remember the way that Egghead was laid out, you had the Fabrio phase on the bottom, then you had the cloud manufacturing plant that created the island clouds, and then at the labo phase at the top. And then at the top of the labo phase was the egg, the big egg of Egghead, and the upper portion of that egg was Punk Records with Vegapunk's brain. That part got separated and is now drifting off in the sky with the other Vegapunk bodies that have kind of merged into a sort of chimera creature, Shaka, Edison, and Atlas, and then they're going off to Weatheria. They're going to rendezvous with Haradis, I guess, and that's where they're going to dock their ship, I suppose. But as for the rest of the labo phase, the power plant and the mother flame included, that was moved to Marijois. Not exactly sure how they managed to do that, but I'm assuming they probably took the entire cloud plant with them, or they just, you know, released the labo phase and then pushed it all the way. They separated the labo phase and they pushed it somewhere else. And they just moved it because labo, you know, the island clouds can only exist at high enough elevations. So you just move that, and eventually I guess it would reach Marijois, which is also a very high elevation. So I guess island clouds could exist there. And then, yeah, that's where they moved everything. So, yeah, the government now firmly has the Mother Flame in their possession. And so York is complaining because I was a celestial dragon. I'm supposed to get all the food I want. You know, like, that's not how this deal was supposed to happen. Must have really sucked for York, huh? Yeah, it really pays for being a traitor right about now, doesn't it, York? The moment you get to Marijois, you're like, yeah, I had all the food I could want at Egghead. Literally, it came out of vending machines. I could eat and sleep all I wanted. But that wasn't good enough. I want more of that. So you got to Marijois, and it's like, yeah, sorry, there's a food shortage. All we can afford to give you is like 3 filet mignons a day. And it's like, just 3 filet mignons a day? How am I supposed to survive here? So, yeah, she's being upset, and Garling is telling her, hey, York, I told you, sorry, food shortage. Do you know one thing that might break this deadlock, though? The Mother Flame! The whole reason we have you, the whole reason this thing is here, so how about you hurry up and produce some energy? And she's like, well, I don't wanna, I'm hungry. So, yeah. You know, I made a video talking about how they might just make York one of the God's Knights. That doesn't seem to be the case right now. You know, York is just, you know, being very upset that she's hungry, okay? And so, yeah, probably kicking herself right now about the whole, maybe having second thoughts, I think, a little bit. And Garling goes on to say, you know, some might claim that the original Vegapunk, the Stella, was aligned in this whole rebellion right now, so... yeah, this is your penance. And York's like, wah! And then that's kind of it, and then Garling hangs up. He says rebellion, rebellion. So we still do not have a definitive answer on who attacked Marijois, but it seems to be the Revolutionary Army. Some people were saying it could have been Blackbeard, it could have been, his crew that might have attacked, but no, from these statements, it really does seem to be like the common folk blockading everything. They're at least responsible for the food shortage, but as for people that actually attacked Marijois, because we saw burned buildings outside of the castle where the Celestial Dragon City was that the Revolutionary Army? Was that, like, Blackbeard's crew? Who was that exactly? But it seems to be the Revolution. But we haven't really seen it yet. So Garling sits down and he's like, oh, man. It's just one disaster after another. And this all started when the sun god, Nika, arrived. And so the Gorosei have a conversation about, like, yeah, maybe... was that all coincidence? Whenever Luffy decided to awaken the power of the Gumu Gumu no Mi and he's the sun god now, was it all coincidence or was this all inevitable? And I guess they take Imu off hold. I guess Imu was still on the phone during that entire conversation. It's like, in any case, great Imu, you cannot leave, right? You should not leave the castle. Allow us to dispatch some admirals instead. Okay, and so Ethan Bear and Venus Juro is like, no, I don't think the Admirals are going to work for this one. They have their hands full right now. There's so many other incidents going on in the world. Our hands are tied. All right, so we don't know about everything that's happening in the world right now, but it does seem to be absolute chaos. I mean, this is several days, if not weeks at this point, since Vegapunk has basically come on international, broadcast and said, the world's going to end, Quasar. So it's absolute panic, and even Dragon kind of said this as he was staring west, I believe. He was like, we gotta mobilize now before the world starts going into chaos. Because, everybody is going to start fighting now for the highest land possible. They're going to find all of the kingdoms and nations that are built on, like, mountains and stuff like that, and they're going to start invading, and they're going to try to, like, it's like, no, we need to move here to make sure that, we survive this great flood, right? So, a lot of chaos right now. Marines are probably stretched thin. As for the Admirals, well... I don't think you want Akainu going to Elbaf, the place with the giant tree, the Magma Man. I don't know if that's a good idea. At the end of the day, Emu kind of still wants Elbaf to stick around. I don't think Emu's goal here is completely destroy Elbaf. It's more, I guess, to get Luffy and Loki to, like, bend the knee and join them and get the giants to join them. Like, Emu really wants the giant army, okay? And then also Needhog is there now that they're aware of that, right? So, he's the fleet admiral, so probably not going to go personally. Kizaru's still probably pretty messed up from the whole Egghead incident. I'm not really sure where Kizaru's at in terms of his mental state. I'd actually be surprised if he's still, oh yeah, another mission? Yeah, sure, right ahead, after I just get over the trauma of murdering my best friend. That was the last time we saw Kizaru. Then we have Fujitora and Aramaki. So the last time we saw Aramaki, it was, we had the scene at Wano, and then Shanks showed up, and then he pissed his pants, and then I think we had the one scene after, I think that did take place after, where he went to Sphinx, and he brought in Edward Weevil. And that happened kind of off-screen, and then Miss Bucking was telling Marco to go help save him, okay? So that was the last time we heard anything from Aramaki, so I guess he was taking Edward Weevil to impel down, I suppose. And then Fujitora we haven't heard from in a while. Fujitora, last time we heard anything from him was way back at Reverie, when he helped a lot of the slaves get free, and then him and Aramaki got into a fight because of that, right? Very different ideals there between the two. So I don't know where they're at right now, but they're probably scattered all over the world. In any case, they seem, like Ethan Barron mentions, that an admiral will not work. They're not going to be able to send an admiral. And so Top Man, Warkery, gets up and he's like, all right, then I guess there's nothing else for us to do. We, Gorosei, must go to Elbaf and we must get involved. However, Emu begins to speak. Warkery, this is no mere coincidence. Arrogance, idleness, negligence, pride. That has nothing to do with what's going on here. This was all inevitable from day one. So it's actually a very ominous thing for Emu to say, and also a little bit more, I don't want to say human, but it's a little bit more characterization. There we go. Where Emu is just like, no. Like Emu was considering this stuff too. Like the whole conversation they were having, Emu was sitting there probably like, no. You speak of inevitability. I do believe this was an inevitability. I don't think it's almost like Emu is admitting defeat in a weird way, right? Isn't it? It's almost, Emu is like basically saying, it doesn't matter how much we prepared. It doesn't matter how much we built up our forces. It doesn't even really matter if Marie Joie was under attack right now or wasn't or what. No. This would have happened no matter what. And IMU begins what I very well think is a chronological flashback through all of these events together. And it starts with rocks. Now, some of the dialogue here that IMU is reminiscing about is dialogue that was spoken to IMU, and some of it is dialogue that IMU was speaking. So I'm going to have to differentiate the two here and tell you where one ends and where the other one begins, okay? So the first flashback IMU has is Rocks. Rocks, 56 years ago, when he broke into the flower room and was confronting IMU and Gunko as well. Gunko was also there, and he's just like, I'll be back, right? That was something that Rocks spoke to IMU. I'll be back here. I'll come back someday. I can't do anything now, but I will be back. The next scene is Roger, who says, seek it out. Now, I guess in this case, it wasn't IMU saying this, and it wasn't also something getting spoken to IMU. This was just Roger at his execution 24 years ago saying, seek it out, mateys! Find the One Piece! The next scene is the birth of Shirahoshi, with the dialogue over it saying, it appears that Neptune has had a daughter. That is, I believe, this is like IMU hearing this news and being like, ah, so a new mermaid princess has been born, kind of situation, right? So that would have been 16 years ago. This next one is Shanks. And over Shanks, it's that devil fruit was stolen. So I'm assuming it's IMU when IMU learned about the theft of Shanks taking the devil fruit from Who's Who's Cypher Pole ship. Pause for that. We're going to get back to that in a second because that's really important. The next one is Harald. And this is when Harald was killed by Loki. This would have been 14 years ago. Where Harald dies and then IMU is like, there must be something unforeseen lurking on Elbaf. You know, the existence of Nidhogg. Okay. So here, Shirahoshi's birth was 16 years ago. The death of Harald was 14 years ago. And Shanks's panel is right in the middle. Now that's interesting. Luffy ate the Gumu Gumu no Mi when he was 7 years old. That was 12 years ago. Luffy's 19 right now, okay? Shanks's crew had been docked at Fuchsia Village for a year prior to that. So they arrived when Luffy was 6. That would have been 13 years ago. So, if this is supposed to be like reverse chronological order, like Rocks was 56 years ago, Roger was 24, Shirahoshi's was 16 years ago, then we have Shanks and Harald. It keeps going in that path. That would mean Shanks attacked Who's Who's ship either 14 or 15 years ago. You could say it's like maybe the same year as when Harald died or maybe the year prior. I don't know if we ever saw this just because, like, I don't know, I always felt like it was implied that Shanks had just recently gotten his hands on the Gumu Gumu no Mi. Actually, have it right here. Like, they had just recently gotten this, and because they brought it into the bar. They had it in the little treasure chest, and they brought it into the bar, and they sat it right there on the counter, and Luffy was like, oh, hey, I'm hungry, and then he eats it, and he gets the power, right? So I assumed this was something they had just recently gotten, but according to this flashback, and it might have been also mentioned before when this occurred, maybe it was, but like, Shanks had been holding on to this thing for, I mean, at the very most, could have been like 2 years. I mean, at the very most, it could have been 3 years. At the very least, I guess, 2 years. So why did they just like they had this on their ship? Like, why did they randomly bring it into the bar then? I don't know. Maybe this wanted to keep them on them at all times to make sure they always had an eye on it, but I don't know. I don't know exactly. Anyway, so next scene we have Loki being identified as the captain of the ship in the fog. That was mentioned last time, right? A ship appears in the fog with a giant amongst giants that attacks world government vessels. This was mentioned to be Loki. He's the captain. This is also probably when he was issued his special bounty of over 2 billion. So that would have been like somewhere between 14 years ago and 6 years ago. Then we get into more modern, more present-day events that we've seen in the story. So we have the death of Whitebeard, and we have Luffy there after Ace's death, where he's unconscious at the war at Marineford. And Imu was basically saying after, this is probably Imu's reaction after learning about the events of the war, why would Whitebeard protect that young man? Who is he? Monkey D. Luffy. And then also, Blackbeard's there as well, also at Marineford. And that one, Marshall D. Teach. So this is like Imu's reaction to the war. Like, wait a minute. Whitebeard, wait, who is that kid? Who is this Monkey D. Luffy? Who is this Marshall D. Teach? And then we get even more present events when Cobra was in the audience chamber with Imu, and he says, no, her real name is Nefeltari D. Lily. And then Imu just kind of starts having a breakdown, like, Joy Boy, Davy Jones, will thou keep making me suffer? Why do you keep torturing me? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting off of Imu here. Imu's having this like, why? You ghosts from the past! Why do you vex me so? You know, like kind of like that, right? And then Imu is looking down at the photo of Vivi and is like, retrieve Vivi, right? So Imu really wants Vivi. That was also established, right? And now we end the flashback as Imu's reminiscing about all of the events, and we see the flower room as a abyss circle appears right around Imu's shadow body. It was all set into motion long, long ago. The Holy Land shall be left in all of your hands. I depart. And then Imu teleports using the Abyss Circle as the Gorosei are like, Great Imu, if you go to the surface, then... ... It's interesting that they just don't say it, right? Like, I mean, there has to be some tension here, but there's no reason for them to cut off like that. Like, Great Imu, there's no reason for you. If you go to the surface, you'll get a nosebleed. No, you can't get that. Or it's like, all of Marijois will be destroyed, or the Red Line will crumble, or something horrible will happen. Cthulhu will wake up. You cannot leave. I swear to God, if Oda does do that, if Oda does the Imu's presence at Marijois was actually the only thing holding the real threat back. I mean, it could be something like, oh yeah, Imu's 100% evil, but there's something else that when Imu leaves, there's something else that'll show up that's 1,000% evil. That's just the plot of the Mistborn books, but still, I mean, I like that twist. So if this happened here, I'd be actually kind of okay with that. All right, so there's this scene here where you see the 5 Gorosei. Some of them are freaking out more than others. Garling doesn't seem to care. Garling is just like, no, we have no authority to forbid this. But that I'm just going to chalk up to him being the new guy and him not wanting to, push the bear. Poke the bear? Yeah, poke the bear. You don't push the bear. That's even worse, right? So Garling might just be like, we have no authority to stop this. Imu is the boss. Now, Marcus Mars and Warkery, they're a little bit more freaked out by this. They're a little bit more panicky. Marcus Mars looks the most upset I've ever seen him. Marcus is just like, but, Lord Imu. And then Warkery is like, you cannot leave the castle. Now, Ethan Baron Venus Juro and Shepherd Jupiter, I'm not going to say they don't care, but they're a lot more, like, stoic and solemn about this. You know, Ethan Baron Venus Juro is just, it is not our place to question the Great One. And Peter just says, the Great One is fully aware of these consequences. They know what they're getting themselves into. Now, the Gorosei are each designated with a number. We know Saturn's is number 5. Well, was number 5, so we can assume Garling's is now the new 5. When they each arrived at Egghead, you saw their circles, and their summoning circles of the Gorosei are a little different from the other ones. They have numbers in them. The numbers are Marcus Mars is number 4, Warkery is number 3, Ethan Baron is 2, and Shepherd Jupiter is 1. Okay? Now, I don't know if those numbers indicate order of when they became Gorosei, but I kind of think that. In which case, Saturn would have been the most recent addition before Garling, and we know Saturn had been around 200 years ago. I don't think they get new Gorosei very frequently. I think it's every few centuries one maybe screws up and gets killed, and then they make a new one, right? So, if we're going with that logic, Peter's the oldest. which is ironic because he's kind of the one that looks the youngest, but Peter is number 1, so he might be the oldest, then Ethan, Baron, Venus, Juro. Now, I don't know if that means they're all the way back from Void Century days, which they very well could be, but even if they're not from the Void Century, they could be like 700 years ago, 600 years ago, something like that. Ethan, Baron, Venus, Juro also has the Shodai Katetsu, which was forged by the original Katetsu, which would have also been a really long time ago. Ethan, Baron, Venus, Juro might actually just be the Katetsu, if possible, right? So it would make sense that those two were the most, like, they've been around Emu the longest, and they know. And here's another question for you. Has Emu ever left Castle Pangea and gone down to the lower realm in this way? Has this ever happened before? Because, I mean, they're saying stuff like, if you leave, then this will happen, implying that they know what will happen. Now, this could just be because Emu might have explained it to them. This is why I am trapped here. This is why I have the Gorosei. This is why I have the God's Knights. This is why I have the Marines. This is why I have to have all of these, you know, chess pieces on the board, because I myself cannot move. If Emu is the king, think about it like in chess. The king can't really move as freely as all the other pieces can. It can't go across the board. It can only move one piece at a time. Unless you're castling, which is just completely ridiculous. Castling in chess. Who thought of that? Seriously, who thought of that? I have no idea. It's such a random thing. I don't know who introduced that rule. But anyway, so it could be something like that. Like, Emu can't move around too much, so that's why I have all these pieces and everything, right? So did this ever happen before? In, like, the over 800 years where the world government has existed? I'm thinking it might have happened at least once. I mean, Ryuma caused a lot of shit back in the day. I could see Emu getting involved for the Sword God. Maybe a couple of other times, maybe not even a couple of other times. I'm thinking max 2. Maximum 2 times before this has Emu left Castle Pangea. All right? And this, I don't think this is the very first time in 800 years, but maybe once or twice, and that's it. All right? So, Emu disappears in the summoning circle. When he does, the clouds begin to loom over Marijois, over Castle Pangea, and it kind of stretches out to over the red line as well. We see the edge of the red line where the gondola arrives, and there's that stairway that has the different statues of the 20 founders. You know, the clouds begin to, like, expand outwards. Now, I don't know if that's just for ominous dramatic effect, you know, like, oh, Emu's arriving, so the clouds are darkened because that's symbolic of dread, or if that's an actual effect, like, you know, the Gorosei are like, please, Emu, do not go, and then he disappears, and they're like, then they hear the rumbling outside of the clouds and of the thunder, and I'm like, oh no, it's beginning. So, yeah, okay. So now we're cutting back to Elbaf. Man, that's a juxtaposition if there ever was one. All right, so this is kind of everybody kind of coming together and just kind of recouping as if the battle is already over, because from their perspective it kind of is. Hey guys, we beat all the main villains, everything's fine. Man, this is a big one. This is about, the shoe's about to drop on this one. So we cut to the western village in the Sun Realm, where we have Gerd arriving, and she's like going up to Hyrudin and the other members of the new Giant Warrior Pirates, and she's like, hey Hyrudin, check this out. I found this, you know, one of the villains, one of the enemies down there, and he was trying to paste himself back together, and it's Summers. So we saw Summers in the giant, like, hoof print, or dragon claw, you know, print that Loki left, right? And so he was trying to piece himself back together. We saw his heart there, and we saw his head come back together, but now I guess Gerd got to him before he was completely able to piece himself back together. And so Gerd is holding the upper part of Summers' body and the lower portion, and his arms and legs are tied up so he can't really move. I guess he also isn't really able to use his Devil Fruit ability, because I feel like he could use his Devil Fruit ability to make the thorns appear, and like Gerd is like holding on to his body parts like this. She shouldn't be able to do that if he could just use his Devil Fruit power, right? So she's holding up the body parts like this, and his body parts are like attracting like a magnet, like magnetizing themselves to each other, trying to pull themselves back together. And so it's like one of those little toys you could get at Dollar Tree, you know, like little magnets that like connect back to each other. All right, so Gerd is like, look how weird this guy is. Whoa. Whoa. You know, she's like messing with him. And Summers is like, you know, oh, stop it. They called you Gerd? All right, I'm going to remember that name until I die. The second I get my body back, you're dead, lady. right? And then Goldberg holds up his heart. Well, Goldberg doesn't hold up his heart. He doesn't like rip, hey guys, check out my heart. He's like, no, he holds up Summers' heart, which is mentioned to be steel. I'm like, okay, it's a metal heart. Because it was a little bit like, we weren't sure, right? Because in the last chapter, it looked metallic. It was kind of shiny, but like, is it a regular heart? It was also making the same sound effect as a heartbeat, you know, in Japanese. So I wasn't like sure, like if it was metal, if it was mechanical, shouldn't it be making like a different sound, like instead of that one? I don't know. Anyway, yes, it's steel. It's a metal heart, okay? And so Goldberg holds it up and they're looking at it and Zoro sees it. Zoro's there and he's like, if I destroyed this, would he still be able to patch himself back together? And Summers is like, no! So I think that's a yes. I think that's probably a yes there. Now, I don't know if this means if you destroy the heart, Summers dies on the spot, because Zoro just said if I destroy it, will he not be able to piece himself back together? It'd be very interesting if destroying the heart doesn't kill him, but now he's just stuck like that, and he'd just die of natural causes for that reason, right? Very curious about how this heart thing works, if this is a thing for all of the God's Knights. Because if we're going along with the logic here that there was like one piece of them inside, there you go, one piece inside of their body that was unlike all the other pieces, and apparently this piece doesn't regenerate, because when Zoro says if I destroy this, is it going to come back? And Summers was like, oh no, implying, he was terrified, implying that this thing can be destroyed. Summers knows it can be destroyed, and it's going to be really bad if it is destroyed for him. So, do all the God's Knights have this? Because, like, when Usopp attacked Gunko, he, like, used Skull Bomb Grass and blew off, like, the upper part of her body. And there was no heart there, and then it just reconstituted. Is this gonna be like some Elder Tagoro shit where like you can hide the heart and it's like I hid the heart in my leg, so when you blew off the top part of my body, I didn't die, I reconstituted, right? There's another there's another villain actually in fucking Yu Yu Hakusho where that happens. It's in the Beasts of Maze Castle arc where it's the first dude, the turtle dude, not Byakuya, not the tiger, Genbu. Yeah, the big rock guy that Kurama fights. Remember that? You know, he could reconstitute himself, but there was like that one little rock inside of him that was like a different color, and that was like, oh, that's your weak point. I'm just gonna grab that and crush it really quick, and then he could reconstitute, but it was like in a different shape, right? He was defeated that way, right? So, I don't know, maybe it's something like that. I don't know, maybe destroying the heart doesn't kill him, but also the idea, it's also symbolic that the God's Knights don't have a heart. They have literally a heart of steel, okay? It's a metallic, it's unfeeling, right? Okay, and they're horrible people, so it's symbolic in that way. So I don't know where that's gonna go. We go over to the Walrus School now. We see Frankie caring for Brooke and Usopp. They're still unconscious. They're waiting for Chopper to arrive. And Frankie's like, hey man, you guys, your bones are all busted up. You want me to turn you into cyborgs? I mean, honestly, Jinbei's calling out for Chopper, like, Chopper, we need your help! You know, we got 2 straw hats down over here, right? But Frankie honestly should be also the second best doctor on the crew, because Frankie was able to fix himself up after getting hit by a train and was able to remodel his entire body with scrap metal by himself, and it worked. Frankie should be the best surgeon on level with Law in this story in order to make that happen. Where Frankie with just a set of rusty nails and a hammer and an injured, bleeding out body was like, need to make myself better. Turn my stomach into a refrigerator. Need to make nipple lights. You know, like, that's canon on how that happened, all right? Yeah, so anyway, Frankie could turn them into cyborgs by that logic, all right. We see Killingham. Killingham is still all tied up. He's in 3 pieces, his body, his legs, and his head, and they're all tied up, and they've just kind of tied him to a tree. So he's just kind of dangling there on a tree. That's kind of it. And then same kind of deal when Summers was talking to Gerd. Summers was like, your name was Gerd? I'll remember that. Killingham's like, your name is Sanji. I'll remember that. So I don't know if that's queuing up, like Gerd is going to fight against Summers and that'll be the final battle with him. And Killingham's going to fight Sanji again and that'll also be the final battle. Whether it be for this arc or maybe later on they're setting that up, I don't know. But it's interesting. It's the same kind of logic. And then Sanji is just like, I already forgot your name, so whatever. Like, he doesn't care. Then we see the big block of ice that Imu and Gunko were frozen, although now it's just Gunko. And we see Gunko, Princess Shuri's body, still frozen in the giant block of ice. Cutting over to Loki and Luffy, they have left. They have left the block of ice, so she's just there. They are now arriving at the school, and they're like, Loki's like, wait a minute, did somebody freeze the school too? Does somebody else have ice powers? And Lilith's like, no, I just absorbed all of the thermal energy with my Omni Drain converters. It was science. And Loki's like, oh, all right, whatever. And so they go into the school, to the food stores. They go into the cafeteria, and they're like, oh man, all of the food in the cafeteria got frozen because of the ice. Oh, well, it's tasteless, but I still guess it has nutrients in it, so I guess we can eat it. It's just rock solid right now. So Loki starts munching down on frozen bread, which is not fun. Luffy's there, he's trying his best, and he's just like, oh, okay, I guess it's food. It's just trying to eat frozen fish sticks raw. Or not raw, but frozen. Sorry. Man. You know, break teeth off trying to do this, but they're getting food anyway. They're still getting nutrients, right? So Luffy's still all dried up trying to eat food, and he's like, we should give some to Usopp and the others. Oh, man. And Loki's like, yeah, just focus on getting yourself back to normal first. And then Luffy is like, hey, that guy you froze earlier, are they dead? What's up with that? And Loki's like, nah, it was a flash freeze. I don't know what that is. I don't know anything about science. I skipped that class. We didn't have a school back when I was growing up. But actually, did Elbaf just not have school when Loki was growing up? Probably not. Probably mostly just homeschooling at that point. Anyway, Loki's like, yeah, no, flash freeze. So they're not dead. They're sort of like in a cryogenic suspension. Either way, it doesn't matter, because the only way that ice is going to melt is if Ragnir here lets it melt, right? And Ragnir's also eating a big chunk of frozen bread and just like, squeak! So Loki's like, yeah, don't sweat it. They're not going anywhere. You know, eating the food. So it's like some kind of never melt ice or something like that. That's actually really cool. The idea that whenever Loki uses that power, that ice will never melt. All right, I wonder how it would stack up against, like, Akainu's power. You know, questions for another day. Like, if Loki just shows up and just, you know, Niflheim, boom, hits Akainu dead center and freezes him in a block of ice, can he melt it? No. I would assume he could, but he's saying right here, no, that ice isn't melting unless Ragnir wills it. I'm like, okay, it's magic, you know, underworld ice. All right. Maybe kind of similar to Brook in that regard. So anyway, we learn a little bit about that. So Princess Shuri's not out yet, but also Brook is still unconscious as well. So, like, those two probably aren't going to have a conversation until way at the end of the arc, because shit is about to authoritatively hit the fan. We have Nami looking out over the forests of the Sun Realm, and she's using Zeus to put out the remaining fires. And way in the distance, she could see the castle, West Castle. And then a giant pillar of lightning erupts from the sky, and boom, right in front of the castle. Giant black lightning explosion, way bigger than any other thing we've seen at Egghead, with like just mild like lightning strikes. This is a massive lightning bolt, right? And then another one, and then another one, and then another one. There are 5 massive black lightning pillars extending down from the blackened sky. The clouds begin to gather and swirl as a huge abyss circle appears over the Sun Realm, over West Castle. It wasn't over the entire tree, which is what I thought it was going to be, but pretty damn close. Pretty damn close to what I said about that. I had that image in my head of the giant circle appearing over Elbaf, and that delivered. Holy shit. Everybody starts freaking out. Stanson, all the giants are like, whoa, look what's happening. No, not again. We just got done with this. Leave us alone. So we see the magic circle. Nami's like, hey, everybody, get over here. I think something's happening. So Frankie and Sanji come running over to see what's happening. And then Imu hits the tunes. He hits the sick beats, as it were. Because the following things that happen have little musical notes after them. This is a beat. You know, like a rhythmic beat, like when Luffy goes into his sun god form and it's the drums of liberation. It's like, dome tada tada tada, dome tada. You know, it's like that, But this is like Emu's theme music. Oh my god, Emu just hit his theme music. Holy crap, Emu has theme music! What is Emu's theme music? The most emo shit that starts playing out of it. Okay. So, no, we see some of it. We get the sound effects. These aren't lyrics. These are sound effects. But the sound effects are written here as zoom, zoom. So, I can't help but think of Queen's song. Zuma, 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 zuma. And then Doran, 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 Doran. Woohoo! Okay, so what happens? Waluigi arrives. Oh god. Waluigi and Wario arrive. This is a bad day for everybody. Everybody's dead now. Okay, so the houses of the West Village become animated. So does the forest. The trees become animated. In a very similar way to the Soul Fruit and Big Mom's homies. They don't look exactly like the homies that Big Mom produces, but we're going to put a pin in that. We're going to get back to that in a moment, okay? The houses and the trees become animated, and they start... The beat is like coming from them. Like when they're opening their mouth, these sound effects are coming out. This beat is coming out. And it's making this beats and everything. And so everyone's freaking out about this. Nobody knows what to do here. And as the 5 pillars are coming down around the castle, a 6th blast of lightning emanates from the center of the circle straight down right onto the castle. It blows up the castle. All right, it hits right where that summoning circle was in Harald's throne room, and a big portion of the castle, the big tower, just boom, it just explodes outward from the level of energy. Keeping in mind, all the different times the Abyss has been used, right? When Shamrock and Gunko first arrived, when the Gorosei arrived at Egghead, this is completely different. The force of this teleportation is exploding whatever structure is around it. Thank God nobody was in that castle, right? Okay, so a huge burst of Conquerors, probably not on the level of Joy Boy's hockey nuke, but it's getting up there, bursts out. All of the kids, like Colin, and I think that's Olaf, which is Oimo's grandson, they immediately get knocked out by this blast of Conquerors. It seems like the adult giants are able to resist it, so, you know, it's probably not as, like, a crazy level like Joy Boy's hockey, but it's pretty strong. The new Giant Warrior Pirates are feeling it. Chopper and Zoro are feeling it, and they're like, Zoro's like, that's Conqueror's hockey. Like, no shit, Zoro. And then Loki and Luffy sense it. Luffy is still in weakened mode. He has not gotten his energy back yet. Loki's like, it's coming from the castle. And Luffy's like, isn't that the same hockey from before? Oh man, I gotta get some food. You know, how many phases of this boss fight, you know? All right, so now we get the last 2 pages of the chapter. Are you ready for this? You're not ready for this. Are you ready for this? Okay. We see the inside of the castle as Emu arrives, still in the shadow form, and just places their hand down as like they're doubled over in pain, and coughs up blood, okay? So just the process of the teleportation, or the act of Emu arriving in the lower realm, one or the other, or both, has caused tremendous strain on them to the point where they are doubled over, shaking, and puking up blood, okay? Or I don't know if it's blood or whatever the black viscous goo that Emu's like made out of. Emu's appearance in that form, by the way, that silhouette, that's not a silhouette. That's actually how Emu at least has appeared up until now. It's not like Emu just steps out of the shadow and looks like that. It's something else. No. It's like when Emu takes over people and is possessing them and is emerging out of them, like at God Valley, you know, Roger and Garp mentioned that, like, oh, what is this black fog thing? Like, what is that? Right? Okay? Same deal here. I think it's the act of Emu arriving in the lower realm, no longer being within the confines of Castle Pangaea, that now they are reverting back to their true body. The act of leaving that location has forced them back into this original form. And it seems painful. So Emu just lands and is like, the transformation, you know, like something like that, okay? So, actually, that's the thing that actually blows up the castle. It isn't the lightning bolt that blows up the castle. That rocks it a little bit, but this is the thing that actually blows up the castle. Jarl, Broggy, and Dory are there. They're looking at it, and you see Emu beginning to grow wings, and then the last page, I'm going to go panel by panel here of how epic this is. You see Emu's transformation, like his form is changing. Then you have a panel of just the castle surrounded in black fire. And then all of the houses and the trees are like, ha 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 ha! You know, they're laughing at the same time. Killingham and Summers are both in 2 panels, and they're like, the Great One? Summers is like, don't tell me they came here in person! Man, I really messed up. Oh man, they came here to punish me personally! You know, I don't know, you probably bet that's what Summers is actually thinking. And then somebody, I don't know who's saying it, but somebody's limits Jarl or Dory or Broggy, doesn't matter. They're like, look! Someone's on top of the castle spire! So, like, one of the castle towers was obliterated, but, like, another tower, like a spire, is still there. And on top of the tower, it's like a triangular pointed ceiling, we see IMU NERONA's true form and introductory box, or introductory parchment, because it's not like a normal intro box. It's actually like an old piece of, like, parchment for, like, papyrus from, like, way back. Oda will do the special, like, layout with the title boxes. He did it in Wano. They were scrolls sometimes. This is like, oh, Imu's old. Imu's old. Imu doesn't get a regular, you know, box. He existed before boxes existed, right? He was around long before that, right? So, how to even explain Imu's appearance? There is a lot to unpack with this. Okay, so to paint an image here, I'm gonna be as like descriptive as possible. I'm gonna be scattershotted though what to focus on though, okay? So first of all, surrounded by black clouds. Little puffs, little poofs, black clouds are surrounding their entire body. They have the ribbon, which Luffy has, you know, the white ribbon that Luffy has, but it is a black ribbon here, and there are eyeballs that are inside of the ribbon. All right, just like Imu's, you know, perpetual eyes, the ringed eyes, like the Rinnegan or whatever. These eyes are inside of this ribbon. They are sort of like kneeling, like crouching on top of the tower. They have dark skin, white hair, curved devil horns. Devil horns that we haven't seen before. Not like the ones Kaido had that come off to the side. Not like Loki's that are coming out of the forehead, but straight up. They're coming right out of here, like kind of out of your temple. And they're curving like twice. You know, kind of like that. Kind of like an S-shaped sort of horn. Very distinctive. When Imu was transforming, we saw wings appearing out of their shadow body. We don't see the wings here, but they might very well have wings. In which case, IMU NERONA seems to be a Lunarian. Now, we've only had one other Lunarian to, you know, compare them to, and that would have been Albert, that's King. So we don't know everything about the Lunarians, and they're still mysterious. But now you can kind of see the idea of why Imu really wanted all the other Lunarians dead. If Imu was a Lunarian and that had something to do with their weakness or a secret or something, which actually Zoro does know one of the weaknesses of the Lunarians now. However, we don't really see the wings here in this final page. And also, they don't have the flames. You know, like Albert had the flames coming out of him. We see the ribbon. The ribbon looks like, you know, a ribbon of black fire. Maybe that's what that is, but we don't see that. Also, now that I'm thinking about this, I love how when you look at Skypiea, right, and you look at Eneru, and you look at the whole plot of Skypiea, it's generally regarded as like this might be all of One Piece in like a shortened arc, you know, like an abridged version, like a TLDR, this just watch Skypiea. Eneru had wings. He ripped them off. He replaced them with the Tomoe drums on his back. That's kind of, it's giving me some vibes with that, I'm just saying. So Eneru needs to come back and confront Imu. I think that would be the encounter of a lifetime. Anyway, going back to the description. Long flowing white hair, like very long white hair, okay? They're wearing a cloak. The symbol on the cloak is the symbol of the Deep Sea Covenant. So it's this. It's this symbol exactly. We don't know what the Abyssal Covenant, the deep sea, the deepest covenant is yet. This looks to be, it doesn't seem, we don't see the whole thing, granted, but it really just looks like this symbol, the one that Harold got the upgrade for, we saw in the chapter. It's the cross with the circle and then with the horns coming out of it, which now I guess we get the reference for the horns. Okay, what else? They're wielding a staff weapon, like a naginata. It's a very unique looking naginata. It's a long polearm weapon. At the end of the pole, at the blunt side of it, there is another poof of like black clouds coming out of it. Then at the tip of the naginata, the blade, it is shaped like a lightning bolt. I guess I could try to draw that. Hold on. Let me grab a piece of paper. I'll be right back. Okay. Something like that. Okay, that's the best as I can do right there. It's a very unique shape. Starts out as like a lightning bolt, but then ends in kind of like a scythe shape here at the end. And then the staff, and then at the end there's like a cloud. Okay, so that's what we got here. Very unique weapon. I would say it's a Saijo Wazumono graded blade, because I can't think of anything else that Emu would wear. Then again, Emu might exist like before the Saijo or the Meito system was even a thing, but I mean, we got to fill out the remaining, like, I think there's like 7 of these we have left, so yeah, this needs to be one of them. Okay? Don't know what the name of that thing is. Alright, so we have that. Then, there seems to be like, I think it's part of Emu's tail. So Emu has the same devil tail with the like the arrow on the end of it, right? That kind of resembles Gunko's arrows, which might be Gunko's arrows, but it seems to like wrap around their lower body, and there's like skulls. There's like little skulls that have horns on them that are wrapped around the tail, as the tail is like coiling, and then it ends in the arrow. I don't really know how tall Emu is because they're crouching, but they are standing on top of a castle, and the castle was designed for giants. I'm going to assume Emu's at least like Whitebeard size in terms of height, because Emu's standing on the very tip of this like castle that was built for giants to live in. So I'm going to say maybe not as tall as a giant, but like maybe Whitebeard height, I would say. We don't know yet, though, so don't, hold that to me. There's also like a belt. They have like a belt wrapped around them, and a bunch of tattoos, like white tattoos all over their body. That it kind of looks like circuits, like little circuits on I could draw that too, actually. Man, my art degree is really coming into play here. I don't have an art degree. I don't. Just to communicate, I have a bachelor's in digital media. All right, here we go. There's also, when I draw this, if you've played a certain video game franchise, you're going to probably instantly know, you're going to recognize this, and I'll bring that up now. The best way I can personally describe Emu, not like this happened in the game, but I could totally see this design of Emu being like a sexy devil variant of like Ganondorf from Breath of the Wild or Tears of a Kingdom. And the reason I also say that is because there is a tattoo on their hand, and the tattoo looks like this. Okay, and this part of the, like, this looks kind of like a circuit. It's coming up on one of their fingers. And thing is, I bought this when I was in Japan. It looks very similar to the Sheikah slate, the eyeball thing in the Zelda game. So, I don't know. But yeah, essentially, oh no! Emu is hot! No! Oh, by the way, also, I guess, yeah, Emu was not a sexy lady. So sorry for everybody thinking that Emu might have turned out to be a sexy lady. Emu's a sexy guy. That's the way it turns out, I suppose. But anyway, also black nails, sharpened black nails. And I think that's pretty much everything about their overall appearance. They do not say anything after they transform. They're just on top of this tower. And we see the title card that says, World Government Creator. One of the first 20. Ability. Devil's Fruit. King of the World. Saint NERONA Emu. That is the end of the chapter. Break next week. Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. Okay, so, the way that Devil Fruit is written here, and there's even a translator note. So this is the way Devil Fruit is usually written. Okay, it's with kanji. Here it's not. Akuma, devil, is not written with kanji, it is written in katakana. Oda pays really close attention to that shit, so that's not just a coincidence or like, oh, Oda decided to write it this way. No, he's making a distinction between the devil fruits that we know. He's making a distinction between these kind of devil fruits and this. Also, the way it's spoken is his ability is devil fruit or devil's fruit. Emu is more than likely, I'm going to say, the progenitor of devil fruits. It is their ability that spawned all of them. I'm thinking that's the way it's going. And Emu is the said devil. Emu puts the devil in devil fruit. I think it's kind of self-explanatory there, right? Now, how the hell did Emu get this ability? If Emu is the first devil fruit user, the impetus for devil fruits, the origin of devil fruits, how the hell did that happen? Right? Like, in a world, like, from all the abilities we've seen Emu display, I was very dubious that Emu just has a regular devil fruit like everybody else. Like, Emu has the devil fruit, or the contract, or the covenant fruit. It is way too fucking broken to be the power of a single devil fruit. It just is, okay? I would have made an allotment for that if it was revealed that was like the first devil fruit in history that Emu consumed. Maybe. And that could have been the case. Because remember, way back in like the first drafts of One Piece, like in the original Romance Dawns, there was only supposed to be one devil fruit. It was a devil fruit that grew on a tree, and that was it. That was the only one, and Luffy ate it, right? So here it might have been a thing where it's like the very first fruit. We might be going back to Adam and Eve, Genesis kind of creation myth here. You know, the forbidden fruit. They ate the forbidden fruit, got this power, and through Emu, they created other devil fruits. It's also mentioned, of course, that they are hated by Mother Ocean. There was an idea that Emu was that Mother Ocean, because Emu, and it could be Umi, you know, it's a Umi means ocean. That doesn't seem to be the case. What seems to be the case is Emu might have been the one that pissed off Mother Ocean, created the devil fruits, and then, you know, we have them all over the world. It could also mean Emu has the power of every fucking devil fruit. That could just mean what it is. Emu wants the power of the arrow fruit. They got it. Emu wants the power of the soul fruit. They can have it, because that is the ability we saw with all the houses and trees waking up. It looked remarkably similar to Big Mom's. Not exactly the same way, but we've seen if a devil fruit user dies, like they use the ability one way, and then they die, and then somebody else gets it, they have the ability too, but it might manifest in completely different ways. Gil Bastar had the power of the Horo Horo no Mi during God Valley. The ghosts that he spawned looked slightly different from Perona's. They weren't the exact same kind of shape. He died, Perona ate the Horo Horo no Mi, her ghosts look similar. They have a different shaped head, though. So it might be something like that. Like every devil... Oda just addressed this in an SBS, too. He was like, oh, yeah, different people have the same ability. They might use it differently. There were other people that had the Nika fruit before Luffy. It's just they never awakened it. They might have used their abilities in a completely different way than Luffy ever did. They didn't do gear second, gear third. They had other stupid ways to use their powers, maybe, right? Or maybe not stupid, but not the same as Luffy. So Emu might just have the ability to use any devil fruit. Probably not all of them at once, because that would be insane. You know, we're not doing like an all-for-one type of thing here. I combine the Bomb fruit, and the Riki no Mi, and the Jacket fruit, and the Suke no Mi, and the Sube no Mi, and the Berry no Mi, Ultimate Destroyer Cannon! You know, like something like that. I don't know. That would just be something straight from All for One, but like that actually sounds kind of cool. It's very similar to the Soul fruit, which the Soul fruit is one of the most busted of devil fruits in the story. So him using that power makes sense. The arrow ability also makes sense. They're awakened. I'd say they're awakened. And yeah, we see Emu there bleeding from the mouth as they've transformed. They're just like. And their eyes are the same eyes. They have the eyes, although they're colored in a little bit differently in this form, but they still have the same, like, Rinnegan kind of eyes. So yeah, that's the chapter. 5 out of 10. No, okay, yeah, no, okay. So, this is obviously, it's only March, and this is probably already the biggest chapter of the year. If Oda can, you know, top this, if he's setting himself up for like, oh no, March, I'm gonna reveal Emu. But that's only gonna be step one after that point. I mean, Oda's got his job cut out for him at this point. We're going to be breaking this down, obviously. We're going to be looking through every facet of this, so I hope you'll join me on that journey. That's going to be fun. But yeah, I mean, anything else from the chapter is kind of overshadowed by this, but there is other stuff that occurs. It isn't just like, quick chapter, Emu arrives, nothing else happens. I mean, we got stuff with the Gorosei, we got stuff with the God's Knights and the Steel Heart and Loki and Luffy and the Gorosei, and yeah, we got a lot of stuff in this chapter. So yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. Please let me know about all your crazy theories involving where this is going to go. Put that that's pretty much where I'm at right now. Bullet points is original user of the devil fruit, the origin of devil fruits, maybe all the devil fruits are in control, sexy Ganondorf. Yeah, that gets us to where we need to be, I think. Lunarian, so connection to Albur. Lunarians used to live at the top. You know what? We might have been approaching this from a different angle. I'll have to talk about this. But, like, the idea that, like, the world government shows up, kills all the Lunarians, and then they take over. Be even more messed up if it was like IMU NERONA was always a Lunarian, killed all the other Lunarians, and was like, I'm the only Lunarian left, so I'm going to be the sole ruler of the entire world and try to exterminate all the other ones, too. It's an insane bounty. It's like 300 million berries for just information on a Lunarian. Now we kind of see why. Was IMU NERONA always a Lunarian? Is that IMU's original body? Was IMU NERONA? Or was that just like somebody that they possessed? Where the devil power came from? Maybe it was an actual devil that possessed IMU NERONA? So IMU NERONA is just as a victim to this devil being and is just like possessed by them? And like maybe that transformed his body? I don't know if he always looked like that. I don't know. I don't know. But we're gonna find out. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Teching, signing out. Later.